Namaste and thank you for joining us here on The Right Perspective. First up, I'd like to thank you, the viewer, and for all those who've been watching and supporting us, for enjoying this new format, the way we've tried to bring to you many issues that we've discussed threadbare with an audience and with experts. The issue today is 8 years of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government. On the 26th of May 2014, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was sworn in as Prime Minister of India, and 8 years down the line, there are many who are cheering for him to come back in 2024. We'll talk about that, but first, let's look back. How far have we come in the last 8 years, and has a lot been achieved, more than what has been achieved perhaps in the 65 years prior to that? And with me are a bunch of students of law, students of journalism, and of course experts. Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar is there with us, Ashutosh Gargji is there, author and columnist Bindu Dalmia, and of course Shehzad Poonawalla. Now Shehzad Poonawalla today will have to keep his spokesperson of the BJP hat on the one side and talk as a youngster, as a youth, as somebody who wanted his talent and merit to be recognized, and then the shift that he's made. So 8 years, he's also made a lot of shift and a progression. But first, to the Janta, aapse puchte hain. Anybody who wants to have a go at this first question of mine. My question is, rate Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government's performance on a scale of 1 to 10. Who would want to do that? 1 to 10 में से आप उनको कितने number देना चाहेंगे? So let's start from this side and then I'll come this side. हाँ जी. What's your name?
अंकित कुमार.
अंकित कुमार. अंकित बताइए 10 में से कितने नंबर देंगे आप?
5.
5 देंगे आप. अच्छा, 10 में से इन्होंने 5 दिया है. अच्छा, आपकी तरफ से how much would you give?
शाश्वत के लिए 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10. There, अंकित उधर पास कीजिए उनको.
Mandeep Mishra, and I will give him 9 out of 10.
You will give him 9 out of 10. So 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Anybody else? Yes. Hanji.
I'm Pratish from Law Faculty. I will give 6.
You will give him 6. Okay. Right.
Satyam Sharma, and I will give 10 out of 9.
No, 10 out of 9 or 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Thoda nervousness.
7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. So 7 out of 10, 5 out of 10, 9 out of 10.
Shraddha Pandey, Law
Ji,
Faculty,
Shraddha
and I would like to give him 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay. How much would you like to give him?
So I will give 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. So largely the number is 7 out of 10. 70% out of 100% is what the number is. Now what I'm going to ask you is, you gave him 5 out of 10. So संक्षिप्त में tell me why 5 out of 10? 50% ही दिया है तो why? Let's understand that.
सर 50% देने का मेरा ये कारण था कि कहीं ना कहीं बीजेपी के 8 साल के कार्यकालों में बेरोजगारी दर हम देखें तो काफ़ी ज़्यादा बढ़ रहा है. शिक्षा जितना मिलना चाहिए उतना नहीं मिल रहा है. मानव विकास का अगर रिपोर्ट देखें तो उसमें भी हम लोग एक पैदान इस बार खिसक के 131 पे चले गए हैं. धार्मिक भावनाओं पे हम लोग ज़्यादा चोट कर रहे हैं. धार्मिक उन्माद ज़्यादा बढ़ रहा है, दंगे ज़्यादा हो रहे हैं. लोगों में एक तरह का हेट स्पीच या जैसे कि बीजेपी के
तो आप कह रहे हैं डिविसिवनेस की वजह से.
हाँ,
तो ये सारे जो ये सारे जो फैक्टर हैं, इसकी वजह से आप 5 आउट ऑफ 10 देंगे तो जो विकास की बात है वो भी नहीं होता दिख रहा है. किसी ने 9 आउट ऑफ 10 दिया, तो किन ने दिया था? आपने भी दिया? नहीं, वहाँ थी आपके मनदीप, और यहाँ पर भी क्या आपने दिया था? हाँ, क्यों 9 आउट ऑफ 10 दिया आपने?
सर बिकॉज हमने बहुत डेवलपमेंट देखे इन द रोडवेज. हम जैसे कि इंडिया इज़ द लार्जेस्ट रोडवे, और हम उसका अगर कनेक्टिविटी देखें तो इंडिया में बहुत कनेक्टिविटी धीरे धीरे हो रही है. पूर्वांचल एक्सप्रेसवे एंड अब जो जम्मू से जो दिल्ली टू कटरा जो डायरेक्ट
तो भारतमाला यानी कि कनेक्टिविटी जो अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी के टाइम में शुरू हुआ था, तो कनेक्टिविटी की वजह से. बट देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु हैव गिवन इट 7 आउट ऑफ 10. सो बिंदु जी, I want to start with you because you've penned a lovely piece on First Post, which I believe all our viewers should also peruse and read.
Thank you.
So tell us, how much would you score Prime Minister Narendra Modi? And those who are saying 5 out of 10, how would you convince them? And those who are saying 9 out of 10, how would you convince them?
Now, if one takes the view of the youth who are present here,
Ji.
it ranges between 5 to 9 out of 10.
Yes.
So let's take it as an average of 7, 7.5 out of 10, which I think is par excellent rating, considering that he is now incumbent 8 years down the line. There is no anti-incumbency, it is pro-incumbency towards the Modi Sarkar. It only endorses my view, which I wrote in the article, and which is that today brand Modi, and I'm reading out that excerpt, today brand Modi remains the most trusted, winnable, visible entity nationally, while his approval ratings have surged globally to a high of 70% post-COVID, which is the highest rating accorded to any leader during the most dystopic times in history.
I know, I remember that passage because I read it very clearly. But his point is that the atmosphere of divisiveness is far greater today. There is more Hindu-Muslim which is happening rather than sabka saath, sabka vikas. So how do you want to answer that, Ashutosh ji?
Thank you, Anand, and thank you for inviting me. I would probably give him a 9 out of a 10.
So you'll give him 9 out of 10. You've not told me how much would you give him?
I would give him 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10, 9 out of 10.
If there is
Okay.
such a figure.
Okay.
I am a Modi Bhakt, unapologetically.
Okay.
I'd give him a 9 out of 10, and I think I really want to start by saying that Prime Minister Modi's achievements are those of India and Indians, each one of us. We
Okay.
gave him a decisive mandate, not once but twice, and I'm certain it'll be a bigger mandate when we go forward in 2024. But I think, the issue, and while I appreciate some people saying 5 and 7, I have lived through the emergency. I was in college, 74 to 77, and I remember we didn't have the courage to speak in the Delhi University special bus because we were not sure who was listening to us. I've seen my country develop over the years. I've been fortunate to have worked outside India, worked in multinationals, etc. And I believe for young people, today India represents the finest opportunities we can get. And each one of the young people in the audience are global citizens. Each one of you can actually aspire to be working anywhere in the world. And those are the kind of doors that are being opened. I remember when I went first time overseas, it took me a long queue, a lot of convincing to get a visa to go to the US. Today, look at what President Biden is saying, there'll be a special relationship. Who benefits? Each one of us in this room and all the young people. So I think we must appreciate that while there are certain challenges that are there in the short run, the kind of dramatic changes we have seen since 2014 is just the beginning. It's just a scratch on the surface. We've got a phenomenal opportunity as Indians to be able to make our mark in the world.
Right. So you believe that there is a lot that has changed. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanal, there are those who believe he's done a good job. There are those who believe that he can do better or certain things he's not done well. Now, human rights was raised. So, USIRF has a report. There is a counter report which is questioning US's human rights today. No nation can claim to be holier than thou. But हमने जो देखा है और उसके बाद अभी अनुभव कर रहे हैं. This is a generation that is only seeing this. They are seeing only post 2010, 2012, cognizant. How would you answer and what would you tell them?
देखिए, मैं तो ये कहूँगा जो आपको इतिहास भी देखना चाहिए थोड़ा. मतलब जो अगर आप देखते हैं जो ये वाला अरसा, इसमें हमने क्या किया है, बड़ी अच्छी बात है, आप देखिए ज़रूर. पर दो प्रश्न जो आपने उठाए, एक आपने कहा जो एज फार एज द एजुकेशन है उसमें इतना ज़्यादा वो नहीं हुआ है, प्रगति नहीं हुई है. मैं आपसे ये कहना चाहूँगा, देखिए दी न्यू एजुकेशन, द नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी जो आई है, आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी एम्बिशियस एंड अ वेरी विजनरी डॉक्यूमेंट. इससे पहले व्हेन वाज द लास्ट एजुकेशन पॉलिसी दैट वाज रिलीज्ड? दैट वाज इन 1986 और समथिंग. आई थिंक 30 साल के बाद ये पॉलिसी आई है. ऑफ कोर्स आई वुड टेंड टू एग्री विद यू दैट द प्रूफ ऑफ द पुडिंग इज इन द ईटिंग. इसको हम कैसे इम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं उससे हमें मालूम चलेगा जो क्या है. परंतु अगर आप उसके अंदर देखिए और अगर आप ये भी देखिए जो मोदी सरकार का क्या ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड है इन टर्म्स ऑफ डिसीजंस जो आपने लिए हैं, आप उसको कार्यान्वित करने में कितने सफल हुए हैं, ये अगर आप देखते हैं तो मेरे विचार से आपके जहन में बहुत ज़्यादा विश्वास उजागर होगा जो इसके ऊपर भी बहुत अच्छा काम किया जाएगा. जहाँ तक आप बात करते हैं डिविजिवनेस की, तो देखिए मैं आपसे ये कहना चाहूँगा जो पिछले 8 साल में देयर हैज़ नॉट बीन अ सिंगल मेजर communal clash which has really resulted in massive killings or massive violence or death or destruction etc. और मुझे याद है, I remember very distinctly, जहाँ से भी I come from मेरठ, उसके बाद दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में, स्टीफेंस में, हमारी यूनिवर्सिटी कितनी बंद रहती थी. आपने अभी आशुतोष जी ने कहा है, he also belongs to Delhi University, meaning it was small elements which would keep the university closed and which would have so many of these communal clashes. वो यहाँ पर नहीं हुए हैं. तो थोड़ा इतिहास भी देखिए, थोड़ा देखिए पहले क्या हुआ है. I agree, accept, और वो हमेशा होना चाहिए that what you have been able to do, आपका टारगेट, आपका जो विजन है वो उससे और ऊपर आपको रखना चाहिए, बिकॉज यू मस्ट कंटिन्यू टू एस्पायर टू डू वेल. परंतु जो मेरे विचार से 8 साल में हमने अचीव किया है, वेदर इट इज ऑन द डोमेस्टिक फ्रंट, आखिरी चीज में आनंद इसमें यही कहूंगा, जो अगर हमारे देश में पीस, सिक्योरिटी, स्टेबिलिटी नहीं होती तो फॉर ऑल दिस पीरियड इंडिया वुड नॉट हैव बीन द फास्टेस्ट ग्रोइंग इकोनॉमी इन द वर्ल्ड. अभी भी आप अगर देखिए IMF का सभी देशों में सभी की जो है इन्फ्लेशन 40-year हाई, 30-year हाई, US, UK वगैरह सब में, आप वहाँ पर देखिए चीन में कैसे हो रहा है, कोविड-19 से वो कैसे डील कर रहे हैं. वी हैड आवर ओन चैलेंजेस, पर उसके बाद जो हम उभरे हैं, आई थिंक वी हैव रियली बीन a role model to the world. That is what even President Biden mentioned at the Quad Summit in Tokyo.
We'll come to all of that in just a bit. But what happens is, this is a group that has not seen, that will only look at what they see around them. This is a group that will only decide by what they're consuming, what is being sent to them. So when he raises a human rights report, he does not know who is deciding on those human rights. That the 5 nations who are sitting today on the UN Security Council and are deciding the human rights mandand are themselves so violative of human rights, they got no business talking to India about. वो आपको नहीं पता, but he will see कि भाई इंडिया कहाँ पे है उस रैंकिंग में. It's a fair question for him to ask. शहजाद पूनावाला.
सबसे पहले आनंद जी, आपने कहा कि आज मुझे बीजेपी के प्रवक्ता के रूप में नहीं, एक युवा के रूप में बात रखनी चाहिए. तो मैं आपको बता दूं कि प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी हमें हमेशा कहते हैं कि चाहे आप पार्टी की ओर से क्यों ना जाए डिबेट में, परंतु हमेशा राष्ट्रहित की बात रखकर आना है. तो हमारे लिए हमेशा राष्ट्रहित सर्वोपरि है, ना कि परिवार हित या दल हित. तो आज उसी श्रृंखला में देखिए, मैं कहना चाहूँगा कि चाहे आप रैंकिंग 5 में से 10 दें या 11 में से 10 दें, हमारे लिए और प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी की जो दृष्टि है वो सभी के लिए समान दृष्टि से वो काम करते हैं. आपसे मैं कहूँगा, पिछले 8 वर्षों में इस सरकार ने 8 वर्षों में 90 लाख करोड़ से ज़्यादा सामाजिक जन कल्याण हो या कैपिटल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हो या डेवलपमेंट में खर्च किया. यूपीए की सरकार ने 50 लाख करोड़ खर्च किया था. 10 वर्ष में हमने उसका दुगना किया 8 वर्षों में. और इसका मतलब ये है कि हमने 13 करोड़ घरों तक टॉयलेट भिजवाए. अब जब टॉयलेट भेजे तो हमने मोहम्मद और मोहित में अंतर नहीं किया. जब उज्ज्वला गैस योजना के तहत 9 करोड़ सिलेंडर पहुंचे तो हमने ये नहीं देखा कि शिल्पा के घर जा रहा है या सुल्ताना के घर जा रहा है. जब आज 3 करोड़ से ज़्यादा गरीबों के आवास बने हैं, जब 80 करोड़ लोगों को 2 वर्ष तक और अब और 6 महीने तक राशन मुफ्त दिया जाएगा, तो हम ये नहीं देखते कि मुसलमान के घर जा रहा है या किसी हिंदू के घर जा रहा है. और यही दृष्टि की वजह से आज आप देख सकते हैं कि कोरोना पैंडेमिक के होते हुए भी पिछले 2 वर्षों में जिस प्रकार की चुनौती आई हमारे बीच में, उसके बावजूद भी भारत, जैसे अशोक जी बता रहे थे, सबसे तेज़ी से बढ़ने वाली बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनकर उभरी है. हम फ्रैजाइल 5 में हुआ करते थे, आज हम फास्टेस्ट 5 में हैं और पूरी दुनिया का केंद्र हम बन चुके हैं. परंतु मैं एक और बात आपको बताना चाहता हूँ. आप क्योंकि मेरी उम्र के ही हैं या मुझसे कुछ 2-3-4 साल छोटे होंगे, मैं भी आप ही की जनरेशन से हूँ. मैं हो सकता हूँ जेन जी से नहीं हूँ, परंतु मैं मिलेनियल तो ज़रूर हूँ. तो मैं आपसे ये कह सकता हूँ कि एक समय था, मेरी माँ मुझे बताती हैं आज भी, कि पोलियो की वैक्सीन दुनिया में जब इजाद हुई, और क्योंकि वैक्सीनेशन ड्राइव से जुड़े हुए व्यक्ति भी है, उसको भारत में आने में और देश में उसको बांटने में 50 वर्ष निकल गए. परंतु आज हम ऐसी स्थिति में हैं कि कोरोना आया, कोरोना हिट अस, और जिस समय पर दुनिया में कोरोना की वैक्सीन तैयार हुई, उसी समय पर भारत की 2 वैक्सीन तैयार हुई. एक मुझे गर्व होता है कि मेरे शहर का भी उसमें बड़ा योगदान रहा. पूनावाला की वैक्सीन एक तैयार हुई और एक भारत बायोटेक की वैक्सीन हुई. और आज हमने लगभग 200 करोड़ टीके लगाए हैं, ज़्यादातर मुफ्त लगाए हैं. मतलब यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स और यूरोपियन यूनियन दोनों को भी जोड़ दे तो उससे ज़्यादा टीके आज भारत में लगे हैं और मुफ्त लगे हैं. तो ये हमारी आज भारत की उपलब्धि है. देखिए, मैं आपको कई सारे आंकड़े गिना सकता हूं कि किस प्रकार से डिजिटल भारत के तहत ब्रॉडबैंड कनेक्शन बढ़ा है, किस प्रकार से हम लोगों ने आज डबल रेट पे हाईवे बन रहे हैं, किस प्रकार से आज पूरी दुनिया भारत की ओर देख रही है, जैसे यूक्रेन रशिया क्राइसिस में। परंतु सबसे महत्वपूर्ण जो बदलाव 8 वर्षों में हुआ है वो ये है कि पहले एक राजनीति हुआ करती थी जो केवल और केवल परिवार को तरजीह दिया करती थी, परफॉर्मेंस को कभी तरजीह नहीं दिया करती थी। ये जर्नी मेरी भी है। मैं जब तक था कांग्रेस पार्टी में, मैं एक समय पर था, और आज आप देख रहे हैं कि वहां पर किस प्रकार से लोग छोड़े जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि वहां पर केवल एक परिवार को या आपका लास्ट नेम क्या है उसको महत्व है। वहां पर केवल महत्व है पोजीशन को और हो सकता है एम्बिशन को। परंतु आज एक सरकार है जो पोजीशन और एम्बिशन नहीं बल्कि मिशन और विजन पर काम करती है, और यही अंतर है 8 वर्षों में कि एक चाय वाला भी प्रधानमंत्री बन सकता है और देश को दुनिया के सबसे उच्चतम स्तर पर लाने का कोशिश कर सकता है, और आप लोगों के साथ मिलकर कर सकते हैं।
बीजेपी में एक चीज़ का हम बहुत बड़े फैन है, सड़क के। इनका बजट होता है 3-3.5 लाख करोड़ का, और 15.5 लाख करोड़ के करीब बजट बनाया है। मैं एक बिहार से छोटे से कस्बे से हूँ। बढ़िया सड़क बनी है आपके राज्य में। हाँ,
सड़क अच्छी बनी है। हाँ।
कश्मीर का मुद्दा आप लोगों ने जितना शांतिपूर्वक से हल किया, उसके भी हम फैन
थोड़ा
थे।
माइक ऊपर पकड़िए अरविंद। हाँ,
अच्छा,
तो
जिस तरह से आपने
आर्टिकल
कश्मीर का
370
मुद्दा
की बात कर रहे हैं,
हल किया,
370 हटाया।
हाँ,
हाँ,
उसके भी हम अच्छे फैन थे।
हाँ,
फैन हैं भी। उसके बाद जो आप लोगों का वैक्सीनेशन प्लान था,
हाँ,
उसके भी बहुत अच्छे फैन थे।
टीकाकरण 3 अभी वहीं रुकिए, अभी विराम।
My name is Yukti and I'm from Miranda House.
Okay, Yukti, tell me.
So first of all, I would like to answer the question that he raised earlier. He said that there's a certain polarization and divisiveness in the country. But sir, I just want to say that just because there's a certain reactionary revolt against the country's leadership doesn't mean that one wouldn't go for reforms, right? Just because a certain faction on Twitter goes against violently against the government doesn't mean that it represents the country, right? Because the country has been currently and has constantly been reinforcing its trust in the government, right? So justice is non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable concept, and if the government is going for it, even if there's reaction, they should go for it. And coming back to the question, which was about the steps that they've undertaken, now I'll agree with him when he said that the Kashmir issue, the abrogation of Article 370, and also CAA. It is a landmark decision and it should be implemented at the earliest.
Correct. The act was passed 3 years ago. It's not yet been. They've not even listed the dates for the rules.
During 8 years of BJP government, Modi government has not only worked on education system of the students, but also mentally they have prepared students to give examinations. Before the COVID time, when I was in 10th standard, I was going through a lot of stress, and during that time I purchased one of his books, which was Exam Warriors. And when I started reading that, and through that journey of being fearer of giving an exam and being then a warrior and going to the examination hall, it was all that my stress was gone away. And next thing is that Modi government also has given a chance to new leaders. It's not only that politically last years only old leaders are coming on. There are new leaders as well.
Yes.
They have given chance to new leaders to give their points, their issues to come forward. So I think there are so many other reasons that
Brilliant.
they have-
I know you've thrown dimension or light. Thank you. What's your name?
Kritanjali.
Thank you, Kritanjali.
Hello everyone, I am Imansha from Jims College, and I would like to say that Narendra Modi has maintained a good relationship with each and every country, and I think that is a good stand. And also that he has also tackled the digitalization thing, which is a very good thing, since each and every person was facing issues regarding the digitalization and they didn't know how to use the phones or how to communicate. So it has made a very good impact on people that we are connecting easily.
Absolutely. I think we are a nation who have the largest amount of digital transactions. And you know, one of the biggest trends in our country right now, that there are more number of internet users in rural India compared to urban India.
Yes,
That is a phenomenal trend and a statistic. And I'll tell you, I traveled abroad not just 2 years back, before COVID, just 2019 I traveled. And I went to a European country which considers itself very advanced. And there, they swipe your credit card without a PIN. They don't have wireless tap. And I said, is there any way that I can digitally pay money to you? Or is there a QR code? So that person looked at me and said, what are you talking, sir? I said, see, in our country, we scan and pay with a QR code. So they have not even woken up to the concept, and we've implemented that. in a nation of 1.3 billion people. Now let me ask you, for you, tell me 3 things which you believe that could not have been done had it not been for Prime Minister Modi.
You know, for me, the 3 biggest takeaways from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's 8 years. First is the fact that because of his humble background, from the background that he comes, he doesn't come from a legacy of a big family. Much like you and I, he comes from a family which would not be known, and he was a chai seller on a railway station. Because of that background, even when he has become the Prime Minister, for him, his heart beats for the final person on the ladder, just like Deen Dayal Upadhyay ji and Mahatma Gandhi ji taught us. And therefore, all his policies and schemes, whether it is the Shauchalaya Yojana, whether it is the Yojana to give free rations, or whether it is the Yojana to give Kisan Samman Nidhi to the farmers, or whether it is the Yojana to give houses.
Three.
No. This is all one under social welfare.
So you're saying
so
social
he's
welfare.
the biggest poster boy of social welfare anywhere across the world. And secondly, the most important thing that he has done is Beti Bachao. Today, for the first time in India, we are seeing a sex ratio where females are more than males, and this is also translated in the schemes. Whichever schemes he runs, 20 to 25%, whether it's the Mudra Yojana or Nal Se Jal or any other Yojana, that translates into benefits directly for women. So empowering women and making them, giving them the opportunity to do much more with themselves and with their lives and to contribute to the economy. And thirdly, which I would definitely say, is that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has changed the mindset, and that mindset change can be seen partly in politics. My story in politics would not have been, I was in Congress. I would never, an Indian Muslim like me could never become the spokesperson of the Indian National Congress. But I am the spokesperson of the governing party of India, and it is only possible because of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And also, this entire culture of VVIP elitism has been finished by Narendra Modi ji. That is something that I truly give him most credit for, because he has empowered the common man.
So 3 things. One is social welfare. So when you say social welfare is a socialism concept. It's a social. तो फिर वो हार्ड राइट कैसे हो गए? हिंदुत्ववादी और हार्ड राइट कैसे हो? तो हार्ड राइट तो है ही नहीं. वो तो सोशल वेलफेयर और सोशलिज्म को उन्होंने सोशल राइट एक नया कॉन्सेप्ट किया है, जहां व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इज इट्स मोर अबाउट बीइंग ओरिएंटेड एंड रूटेड टू आवर ओन कल्चर. Frankly, what happens is a lot of us today think in one language, talk in another language. And 9 out of 10 times it's not our matrabhasha. It's not our mother tongue. That's how much we've been removed from our own sabhyata. So if he's talking, if he's saying that no, I will take ours, I will go back and I will be proud of my sabhyata, it makes you also go back and see what is it that is so special about our sabhyata. See, the biggest change for me, Binduji, is that in 2014, 2015, when he went to UNGA, he was trying to wear a suit, and he was trying to wear a bandgala, and he was trying to speak in English, and he was clearly out of place and he was uncomfortable. At Quad this year, he's in a kurta pajama with a nice achkan or a jacket, and he's walking confidently and he's talking in Hindi. That is the shift in 8 years.
Very well said. Very, very well.
Shift in 8 years, which says कि भाई जो आप हैं उससे आप उस पे don't be unapologetic and ashamed about it. यही हमको brain wash कर दिया गया था ना.
Also take the flip side of this, which I would say, it is the age of lifelong learning. Especially, let's talk to students. We are not done with schooling. Even me at my age today, I've got leaps and bounds to learn. I'm a student to life still. Now take Modi, take our finance minister, FM Sitaraman. When she, for example, became the defense minister, what would she have known about defense? Correct. So I think there's got to be adaptability, and there's, like Modi wanted to learn English. Modi wanted a taste of dressing in a certain sartorial way or whatever. So those are changes. Yes, what I'm in essence trying to say is that remain what you are, but also this is the age where you want to keep learning and doing new things. So if Modi wanted to learn English, or I need to learn Hindi badly, having been convent educated, I should be doing it in the age of lifelong learning.
No, absolutely. But the lifelong learning can be about the diversity of our own sabhyata and our Sanskriti, which we've been far removed from.
Absolutely.
My point is, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a Gujarati who learned Hindi. And he's now a North Indian who's trying to speak in Tamil and he's trying to speak in Kannada. There is and he is trying to speak in Bengali.
So it's the point, the lifelong learning. That
Absolutely,
we
but that learning can be about our own Sabhyata and Sanskriti and not
In
trying to
any
say
sphere,
that I
any
am.
sphere.
Yeah,
It is-
because many believe that this is what the colonialists said. They said, okay, we can't conquer this place, we can't rule this place. We will make sure that we have Browns who think like the Goras and dress like the Goras. So we will have brown Goras. That's what we leave them conditioned to be. And that's what perhaps was happening over 75 years. When I see a Prime Minister who's unabashed about standing on the World Forum and speaking in Hindi.
Unapologetically.
Yeah, and I'm proud because that's my language. Xi Jinping speaks in Mandarin. Not that he doesn't understand English. Emmanuel Macron speaks in French.
French.
He
Very
doesn't
well said.
speak in
Yes,
English.
yes, indeed.
Scholz or Angela Merkel will speak in German, even though they know English. That's what they do. They say, I will continue to remain rooted. So that's the important part. Ashutosh ji, 3 aspects which are important for you.
Fantastic question, Anand, and I'm going to, since I'm from the business world, let me talk 3 business things. I see Prime Minister Modi as the Chief Executive Officer of our country. The Chief Executive Officer sets a vision.
Yeah.
First time I heard the Prime Minister say $5 trillion economy.
Economy, correct.
No Prime Minister before that, including economists, Prime Ministers, etc., have ever uttered this. And you spoke about the Chief Minister of UP. I was speaking to him at a meeting, and he actually took that 5 trillion and said, Prime Minister Modi can achieve 5 trillion if UP becomes 1 trillion.
Correct.
Now, that is something which to me says a lot of the trickle-down effect across the whole country, in every state. The second thing, I think, is financial inclusion. I don't know whether all of the young people here know, but I got my first credit card when I was 28, 7 years after joining ITC. That was the amount of time it took. Think of the amount of people who have not been able to send money to their villages even though they're working here, and they would go to some person in the market, pay 2, 3, 4%, and then the money would be delivered. This entire concept of direct benefit transfer, being able to use your money based on the Aadhaar card, which has been taken to a new level by this government, is completely unprecedented.
UPI, sir, UPI.
Correct.
कि
And
आज
the
मेरे
UPI.
पास पैसा आया और मैं गांव में फट से 2 सेकंड के अंदर
Yeah,
वहां
and
पैसा
I will give you a very interesting example.
बिल भर दो वहां से कितना ये हो गया कि बिल बकाया रह गया वहां पर अब बिल भेज दो आप बिल भर दो जहां से
You know, and I was playing golf and there was some people didn't have some money to pay the caddy, and the caddy actually said, "Paytm hai, sir." And people looked very surprised. Everybody today is included in this financial strategy of this government.
And we made it cashless.
Correct.
सबसे बड़ी
May I
बात ये
just say one thing here, that this is the same reform that the whole of India condemned demonetization 5 years back. And what are we talking
Many
today?
still believe
A
it is one of his
transition
anupalabdhi.
from a
It
cash-
is one of his failures. Many people believe demonetization is one of his
I
failures.
think we were in the step in the right direction towards formalizing the economy. Still today, we see our tax to GDP ratios. It is one of the lowest, even amongst our Asian peers, considering just 6.5% of the population pays income tax.
Tax, correct.
So I think and today what are we talking about? A digital economy, we're talking about fintech, we're talking about paying through UPI. How did all this happen? It started with demonetization, the much demonized demonetization.
Absolutely. There are
And I
many
just want
who
to make
believe
one third point, which was...
Sorry,
Jay,
I'm
Jay,
sorry,
Jay,
sorry,
no,
sorry,
please,
sorry.
That's okay,
My
absolutely
apologies.
okay. But the third one, and I think from a business perspective, it's the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, which came in 2016. I think that changed the entire game for the corporate sector in our country and for a lot of foreigners who are operating companies, because in India, our problem is once you start a company, it is impossible to shut it down. And the liabilities are so incredible to manage. I think this one law, and that's been spoken about across the whole world, and it was passed in 2016, 6 years ago. Even today, when I speak to people outside India, they say, you have a very smart bankruptcy and insolvency code, which doesn't exist even in developed countries.
Very well said. But before I come to the foreign policy aspect, आप लोगों के लिए I am so jealous of you guys. क्योंकि जब हमारे टाइम में इस कॉलेज में था ना, हम लोग का बिजनेस का आइडिया होता था कि हम यार ये शुरू करते हैं, पर कैपिटल कहाँ से लाएं, प्रोजेक्ट किसको दिखाएं, लोन किसको दें. आज हर IIT में, हर IIM में, हर बड़ी यूनिवर्सिटी में इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स हैं सर. They are ready. We've got 100 unicorns and there are so many unicorns. Another 100 unicorns who are waiting to become unicorns. And this is something which अगर आपको काम नहीं करना है किसी के लिए, you have the choice today that if I have an idea, I want to go ahead and implement it. Somebody will give you some seed money if your idea, अगर आपके आइडिया में दम है. फिर उसके बाद आपकी मेहनत, आपका दिमाग, और फिर ऑफ कोर्स किस्मत. But this is something which I always believe कि आप लोगों को बहुत कुछ मिला है. मैं उस जमाने से हूँ जब STD करता था, मैं ट्रंक कॉल बुक करते थे, वहाँ से शुरू करके STD मैंने देखा. उसके बाद फिर मैंने वो डंडा लगा के 1 रुपया बचाने के लिए फ़ोन किया. मुंबई में कितना किया हम लोगों ने लोकल कॉल. फिर वहाँ से पेजर है ना, पेजर, और पेजर में पहले सिर्फ नंबर आता था, फिर उसके बाद मैसेज आना शुरू हुआ. फिर वहाँ से 16 रुपया इनकमिंग, 32 रुपया आउटगोइंग, फर्स्ट फोन्स ऑफ नोकिया. आज आपका डेटा का क्या पैसा, 1 पैसा 2 पैसा भी नहीं है. You are born into a technology world. We had to grow and learn technology. We've seen technology evolve like that. The same things happened with foreign policy. Look at the turn that it's happened. And perhaps did it start, Ashokji, did you notice the fact that when he went to swear in in 2014, he invited the SAARC members? Do you think that itself showed that this man is going to perhaps turn foreign policy, Indian foreign policy over its head?
Yeah, absolutely. I think
would you count that as one of his achievements out of the 3?
Absolutely, and I wrote very extensively on that because it really brought to the fore that this man thinks out of the box. No one could have anticipated that this would happen. And I still remember, I think 19th of May, the results were declared or something. 26th was the swearing in to take place. और किसी को नहीं मालूम था, and on 23rd, 24th, that all the SAARC leaders and the Prime Minister of Mauritius, because of our very strong relations with them, they have been invited. And in 2019, we saw, since we had problems with Pakistan, I can say it, that we decided to invite leaders of BIMSTEC countries.
Correct.
And not the SAARC countries. So I think the only 2 or 3 countries that were left out of Pakistan, Maldives, etc. But that with Maldives we had excellent bilateral relations.
Yeah, हमने तो पानी भी भेजा उनको ना.
जी बिल्कुल पानी भेजा
और फिर उनके डेट ट्रैप से भी निकलने में उनकी मदद भी
बहुत मदद कर रहे हैं. उनकी कर रहे हैं श्रीलंका में जो वो हो रहा है. So I would say first is in terms of thinking out of the box. And I think this is what maybe if I could put it in an all-encompassing feature is the leadership that he has provided. What does leadership really entail? And in every sense of the word, whether it is business, whether it is domestic, social, triple talaq dekhiye, our friend who was mentioning about जो बड़ी divisiveness हो गई है, this is something that is working, और ये no one could really have dreamed even that such a thing, such a change would be possible, and possible so peacefully. But let me come to the foreign policy, since that is what you asked. Because I think there the leadership that has been visible, and that has given great strength to the people. After all, policies are decided there. Diplomacy is in terms of implementation. और जिस प्रकार से implementation हुआ है, I think that has been phenomenal as far as, and he has really set very high standards there. There is a total paradigm shift. जो पहले हम बात करते थे, no one could really speak against non-alignment. That was something that was like a holy grail. इसके विरुद्ध कोई जा ही नहीं सकता है. परंतु अब हम बिल्कुल बात करते हैं, मल्टी अलाइनमेंट की बात करते हैं, और सभी के साथ जिसके साथ आपके हित मिलते हैं, इंटरेस्ट मिलते हैं, उनके साथ बात करेंगे. मतलब it would be for our young friends here, it would be interesting to see जब ऐसे G20 की फॉर इंस्टेंस जो मीटिंग्स होती हैं, आई थिंक बिफोर द पेंडेमिक इट टुक प्लेस इन जापान, इन ओसाका. उससे पहले आई थिंक इट वाज इन अर्जेंटीना, इन रियो de Janeiro. अब वहाँ पर इट इज़ द मीटिंग ऑफ 3 लीडर्स, इंडिया, चाइना, रशिया, इन तीनों की मुलाकात होती थी. और दूसरी तरफ there used to be meeting between India, USA and Japan. So India was the common factor in both these. Of course, the world has changed very significantly. But there also, you see, as far as the Quad is concerned, the Quad जो वहाँ से statement आई है, जो बातचीत हुई है, that is basically following the Indian lead on, Russia-Ukraine conflict, or otherwise how we can work together with these countries. You know, the last point possibly I could make is on this, and I think that will definitely touch a chord with all our young friends. You know, he works very hard. Mr. Modi is a very hard worker. अब जैसे देखिए, meaning I'll just tell you the last two instances. He went to Japan. He was there for one night, 2 days. And he had in these 44
Yeah, 40
hours.
engagements in 23 hours.
No, in
20
40 hours.
23 or 28
23.
engagements in 40 hours.
और
Correct.
सभी से मुलाकात की, you know,
Yeah.
meaning even the former prime ministers of Japan, Prime Minister Suga, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, Yoshihiro, all of them came to meet him also. He had meeting with all the captains of industry, all the business
Yeah.
people, and of course bilaterally. So I think he was able to take that. 3 दिन जब वो यूरोप गए थे, 3 दिन में 3 देश गए, and he met 7 leaders of those countries. So he really sort of, you
नहीं,
know,
और वापस टच डाउन करने के बाद फिर उन्होंने कैबिनेट की
Cabinet-
समीक्षा की,
Cabinet-
प्रगति
बिल्कुल-
मीटिंग की है. तो in terms of hard working, there are others who've also worked. I know very well that Dr. Manmohan Singh used to work very, very hard, but he had his wings clipped, that he had to stand up when somebody asked him to stand up, and he could sign only because somebody else was controlling. Here, there is he who is driving it. So it's very
he
clear.
leads and he delegates.
Okay, I have limited time, so let's go back to 3 things which you feel he should have done, he hasn't done, or he must do. Let me start with you.
I think on the question of what do the people want, I think they want jobs. जॉब्स पर अगर थोड़ा और हो जाता तो बेहतर होता, परंतु इसमें मैं ये एक बात भी कहूँगा, you see, as far as all these economic aspects are concerned, issues are concerned, it doesn't depend only on you.
Correct.
You know, there are winds of global.
No, not just that. You have to see it in multiple levels. The point is, everybody should have some earning. Now, whether they are self-employed, they're entrepreneurs, or they're employed with somebody else, all of it comes under the ambit of jobs. The numbers say that there are 6 crore EPFOs. So if 6 crore EPFOs have happened, that means that many would say there are 6 crore jobs that have been created. Should there be more? Of course there should be more. Should there be more opportunity for somebody to be self-employed and employ others? Of course there should be more. That's point number 1. Second?
Employment is there, then I think maybe getting all the, because you find that there are people who are traveling in different directions. Maybe, you know, bringing all of them together and giving all of them also a sense of purpose to take the idea of India.
3 things. Number 1, I think he needs to liberalize faster.
Liberalize faster.
Somewhere the government slowed down, and I think I'm happy to see LIC has
I
gone
think
through.
a lot of it happened because of COVID. 2 साल COVID के तो पहले तो
Absolutely.
COVID ही होना चाहिए,
जी.
उसके बाद तो बाकी सब तो रोक ही जाएगा. So that's also there.
So liberalize faster. Second, India's had a record $84 billion worth of FDI, but I believe given our situation, we can go to $200 billion,
Correct.
which is the peak that China used to get. So therefore, we need to open up more, get more foreign direct investment into our country. And third, and I think this is a complaint which almost everyone has, he needs to speak to more people directly rather than, I mean, Man Ki Baat I listen to, and that's very important, but I think he needs to be able to address journalists a little more and talk to them.
Yeah, so maybe a press conference where is long overdue, but also maybe speaking to smaller focus groups to get direct feedback is important. There are many who believe that he should reduce tax terrorism also. He needs to
I
get
was
in
coming to
measures.
this.
Yeah, okay. Binduji,
I
please.
must say one thing, Anandji, you may have forgotten that I missed my chance to say which were the 3 things.
Sorry, please.
So may
please
I start with
don't.
that,
Haan
and
ji,
then
haan
I
ji,
will
haan ji.
definitely
Please,
answer your
please.
second
My
question.
apologies, please.
Not at all.
Ji.
Firstly, Modi ji improved on 3 parameters: ease of doing business, ease of living parameters, and now he targets by 2024, by the end of his term, to affect 100% saturation in the percolation of all social sector schemes. Secondly, what I do see is that tax terrorism, what was that, the other retrospective tax, tax terrorism has gone. We've moved to faceless assessments. Retrospective taxation has been abolished, more or less. 25,000 compliances have been done away with. 1,400 archaic laws have been repealed. Labor codes have been from 29 labor laws. It's come down to about 4 labor codes, which are still to be oriented. But these were the major changes, and it was a business-friendly atmosphere that wealth creation is not considered a sin as it was in previous regimes.
Correct.
This is a regime that's very facilitatory towards startup ecosystem, towards wealth creation. Now, to answer your question, the second part.
Yeah, 3 things he must do. Or
Two
he
I
hasn't
can
done.
definitely say.
Ji.
Increase expenditure on education and health.
Yeah.
The GDP to spending ratio for education should, according to the NEP, it should go up to 6%. We are nowhere close to that. I think we're languishing at about 3 in education.
Okay.
3% of GDP is being spent on education. And it's the same thing with health. These are my 2 basic...
See, education and health, there needs to be more focus.
there needs to be more spent.
Yeah, there
more
needs to be more
allocation.
spent.
Much more allocation.
We'll see in the next year's budget and the forthcoming budget after that if there is a change, because a lot of the plans were put paid because of COVID. Everything was focused on how do we beat this
No, we
disease
didn't have the funds.
and
Yes.
ensure
The
that the
economic-
world is expecting 50% of the mortality or the casualties because of COVID coming from India. 20% of the world's population does not even rank among the top 10 at this point, if I remember my numbers
but
correctly.
Anandji, this is all economic hysteresis.
Yeah.
A phenomena which is that when there is an event of this magnitude that hits the economy, it takes years for it, even after the shock has abated.
Yeah.
So we are going to go, I mean, you can say we virtually don't have the funds for that kind
but
of...
I also thank COVID, because COVID ne it exposed the
digitized us.
vulnerability of our healthcare system threadbare.
Threadbare.
The fact is that in places like which are supposed to be future towns and smart cities, if there is no beds, if there are no oxygen plants available, that showed how upended we were as far as healthcare.
Yes.
And from there, within 6 months or 8 months, for all 720 districts to have oxygen plants, for the DRDO to use the Tejas technology to retrofit, and today now we are sitting at 1550 oxygen plants. So it is 1:2 ratio for every district that there are oxygen plants. That's an achievement, but it also exposed how vulnerable we are. Shehzad Poonawala, this is the reason I told you that you are not spokesperson of the BJP today. Now tell me 3 things which you think this government should have done and they've not done.
आनंद जी, देखिए ऐसा है कि 70 वर्षों में इतने गड्ढे खोद के गए हैं कुछ लोग, तो उनको निश्चित भरने में तो समय लगेगा। और मैं तो मानता हूं कि 3 से कहीं अधिक गड्ढे अब भी भरने हैं। परंतु एक समय ये था कि इस देश में हर घर पर शौचालय नहीं था। टुडे वी हैव बिकम ओपन डेफेकेशन फ्री। एक समय ऐसा था कि 50% से कम एलपीजी कवरेज था। टुडे इट्स 98%। एक समय ऐसा था कि 17 करोड़ घर के
you have to tell me 3
आज सारे घरों में
no 3 failures, otherwise the talk time gone to, and I'll go back.
I think देखिए, जो सही है या गलत है इसका आकलन जनता के ऊपर ही छोड़ना चाहिए। और देखिए, एक तस्वीर मैं आपको समाप्त करूंगा कि हाउ इंडिया हैज चेंज्ड। ये है वो आतंकी यासीन मलिक, जिसको एक समय पर भारत के प्रधानमंत्री दावत पर बुलाते थे, और ये वही यासीन मलिक है जिसको आज हमारी राष्ट्रीय सुरक्षा की नीति इस प्रकार से है। 370 तो हट ही गया है, पर आज इस आतंकवादी को सजा भी मिलती है और हम घर में घुसकर सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक करते हैं। ये बदलाव हुआ है भारत में।
Temples are being drained by Indian state.
पर मैं इतना कहूंगा कि काशी विश्वनाथ धाम भी आपके सामने।
What about 40,000? What about 40,000?
Yeah, he is talking about freeing Hindu temples from state control, which has not yet happened. अब यहाँ पर मैं कहूँगा 3-4 चीजें हैं।
आनंद जी,
3-4
if you don't
चीजें
mind,
हैं।
इनका
Freeing Hindu temples from state control. First one, common civil code. Second one, implementation of CAA, NPR and NRC. Number 3. Fourth one, population control law. HRNC, that's what I said, freeing of Hindu temples. So HRNC is the same law. It's the same law. Fifth one, Places of Worship Act 1991. Needed Sanshodhan. It has not yet been done. 5 of them. Judicial reforms. Yes, very well said. Judicial reforms. Because 4 crore cases which are still pending in the courts, and the courts have done nothing but give tarikh pe tarikh. 150 years for the Ram Janmabhoomi issue to be resolved, and again tarikh pe tarikh on the Gyanavapi issue.
एक ही लाइन लूंगा आनंद जी।
Repeat. This is the one which I forgot. Perhaps the biggest failure was the Prime Minister, what he did for the Kisan Hit. He said he's removing for the going back on the Rashtra Hit. But the farm laws were a game-changing set of rules which the government should have pushed through and ensured that the atmosphere was not vitiated as it was. So these were some of the failures.
एक ही लाइन
हाँ जी, एक ही लाइन, हाँ हाँ,
क्योंकि
अब तो वक्त जग गया, इसको डिफेंड करना पड़ेगा, हाँ।
देखिए, एक चीज तो अच्छी है कि इन सब की अपेक्षाएं प्रधानमंत्री से हैं कि ये सारे कार्य वही करेंगे, बाकी किसी पे अपेक्षाएं
ये उम्मीदें सिर्फ प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी से ही हो सकती हैं।
परंतु दो चीजें एड्रेस करनी है। एक समय, क्योंकि ये मुझसे थोड़े छोटे हैं, तो इन्होंने वो समय नहीं देखा होगा जब कुछ लोग हमें चिढ़ाते थे कि मंदिर वही बनाएंगे, तारीख नहीं बताएंगे। मंदिर भी बन रहा है, ये कहते थे 370 हटाएंगे पर तारीख नहीं बताएंगे, 370 भी हट गया। पर एक सवाल मैं कहूंगा,
if you are saying thanks to Supreme Court, then you have to thank Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Why? Because he has ensured that there is no political intervention. It's the courts, by the rule of law and by the democracy, by constitution, that decide in favor of the person or the plaintiff who is deemed right in the eyes of the law. It is not like a Shah Bano ordinance in 1986 that overturns the writ of the rule of the Supreme Court and denies alimony to Shah Bano because you want to appease the other 50%, you ignored this 50% of the population. So there are many arguments, counter arguments. I have to wind up. This conversation is very, very engaging. Big round of applause to everybody. Thank you very much. I have to wind up. Thank you very much. Thank you.